Okay, hello everyone. Good morning. Thank you for joining. My name is Nicole Keller and I am the Employee Benefits Supervisor. I have Brittney Conley on the call. She actually took Kirk, and now known as Reich's place in our department, and she is kind of an observer here. We intended to talk more about all things retirement, but she is trying to gain Chris's almost 30 years worth of knowledge in the last few months, and so she's still learning, but she is in my department as well. We are going to talk about health savings accounts today, kind of how they work, what they are, some of the pros and cons of using them in the context of the fact that open enrollment is starting in mid-October. And so with that in mind, of course, you have the option to change plans. And so we'll talk a little bit more. And at the end, as I mentioned previously to those who were on the call early, it probably won't take the whole hour period, which is fine. We can allow ample time for questions at the end. Okay, so I am going to stop video and pull up the presentation and share my screen. What you can do, if you have questions, it's probably best to leave them to the end, but if there's something that you really, you're afraid you're gonna forget, go ahead and raise your hand. It's a little bit more difficult to toggle back and forth to see the question as it's going. So I'll go ahead and do that. Get the presentation going here. I'm hoping everybody can see my screen. I haven't heard otherwise yet, so that's good. Health savings accounts explained. So health savings accounts, also known as HSAs, can be a little bit confusing. They are intended to enable you to set aside money to use on out-of-pocket medical expenses. They are much different than FSAs or flexible spending accounts, and we'll talk in just a moment about the difference between the two. So what is a health savings account? There's lots of kind of legal regulatory language here, looks a little bit daunting, but in the end, it's basically a bank account. It would be in your name, you'd be the qualified HSA's trustee, and a way to think of it is just a bank account where you can save money to use for out-of-pocket medical expenses. You can pay or reimburse yourself when those medical expenses come up. And the HSA, all of the qualifications and restrictions surrounding it are dictated by the IRS. And so the IRS has different eligibility criteria that you have to meet in order to be able to contribute to an HSA account. So first one is you have to participate in a high deductible health plan. So that is the medical plan that you enroll in, right? So instead of being in, let's say, for example, the Kaiser HMO or the Sutter HMO or the DHMO, you have to be in the high deductible health plan. Each of our three carriers offer one of those plans. So that's step one, and you'd be able to enroll in that plan during open enrollment. And the other, and this is where I think it can be a little more confusing, is you can't have an HSA, or health savings account, and be enrolled in Medicare at the same time. The IRS does not like that. They don't allow you to do so. So if you are getting close to enrolling in Medicare, if you're getting close to retirement, that magical age of 65, reach out to us, because CMS, or the Center of Medicaid Services, they automatically enroll you in Medicare, and then they go backwards 6 months, and they date your Medicare enrollment backward. Problem with that is you can't be contributing to an HSA during that 6 month backward window. Won't go into that right now, but just know that as you're getting close to that age and enrolling in Medicare potentially, and if you are enrolled in a high deductible health plan, you want to be leery of that. What people do is they'll contact our office and say, in 6 months or 9 months or whatever, I'm going to be retiring and I'm going to be going on to Medicare. And then we work through with them how and when to stop those contributions. How does it work? So I tried to make this section really as user friendly and easy to understand as possible. What happens is when you go to the doctor, you are actually paying for the service itself rather than paying a monthly premium. So right now, let's say you're on the Sutter HMO. It's kind of your standard, some money gets withheld from your check each month to pay for the insurance. And then when you go to the doctor, you have set expenses, right? You know it's going to be a $15, $20, $25 copay. You know if you ever needed to be in the emergency room, it would be this much, et cetera. So you know your anticipated expenses. And all three of our plans, our HMO plans, cover quite a bit. So conversely, if you enroll in a high deductible health plan, you generally have little or no monthly premium coming out of your check. So you're not paying for the insurance outright. You can think of it like that. You're not paying up front. You are paying at the point of service. So you go to the doctor, they want to run some tests, and maybe you have some labs, maybe an x-ray. You'll be charged for each of those items directly. Now you're charged the negotiated rate from the carrier. So it's a little bit different than if you just, you weren't in a plan at all. It's kind of, it's a lower rate, if you will. And then, so you're paying at the point of service. And then depending on which health plan you choose and which bargaining unit you're a part of, you might receive a district contribution towards your HSA. So if you're enrolled in this plan and you have single coverage, the district will give you this much a month to put into that HSA. If you have family coverage, it might be more, and it will depend. I will just give you a side note on those. The rates are changing quite a bit this fall because all of the medical rates went up significantly from the carriers. So you will notice that those HSA contributions are really changing. They are not all, 100 or 150, depending on single or family status like they were. They are changing quite a bit. So just keep that in mind. But it's just a different way of using your healthcare. So this is right now for LRCEA employees. I just want to show you how to read this. So let's say you're enrolled in the Kaiser High Deductible Health Plan. The plan monthly premium is what the carrier charges the district. So Kaiser says, for every person enrolled in this plan, district, you owe us almost $1,300. And so the district puts in this amount toward the plan for you. So in this case, the district this year put in the whole amount. That means there's extra money basically left over for the district to put money into your health savings account. So this year it was 100 if you're in an individual, meaning, coverage for just yourself, or 100 if you're a family. So you plus, another family member. Where it gets interesting is the Sutter plan this year was a little on the pricier side, and you'll see the amount the district / your unit is putting in does not cover the whole premium. Because of that, there's no room left over for the district to give a contribution to your health savings account. And therefore, if you were on this plan, you're actually paying. So how I mentioned that you probably don't have a premium coming out of your check to have this plan. In this case, you actually do. So it's a little bit different than what you might usually think. Okay. And then I provided plan summaries. I won't go too into these. I just want to go over a couple kind of important terms that may be new to some of you. So a calendar year deductible. What that means is, so let's just say you're not paying any premium for this plan, and you're paying at the point of service for each service that you incur. You are going to keep paying out of pocket for all of those services until you reach your deductible, which is the point at which the plan starts paying. So let's say, I'll use myself as an example. I have two sons. Let's say, one of them goes in, he breaks his arm. I don't know, my husband gets a bad flu, et cetera. And every time they're going into the doctor, I might be paying $100 here, $200 here, et cetera, all the way during the calendar year up to that deductible amount. Once I hit the deductible, I don't have to pay anything else. There are exceptions to that, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So a deductible is the amount you're going to pay up to that amount. Now, you might have a really great year and not go to the doctor much and never ever get close to that amount. But if you were to reach that amount, that is the point at which the plan starts paying, and generally you stop paying. Now, after you reach that deductible, generally speaking, on most of these plans, the only things that you would still pay for are, for example, prescriptions. So the maximum that you would pay after your deductible for any of those other little expenses that aren't covered under the deductible would be, for example, let's say you're individual and you hit your $1,800 deductible. You would need to have another $1,800 in prescriptions or other things that aren't covered under that deductible in order to hit your out-of-pocket maximum. So out-of-pocket maximum is just your fail-safe, basically. But what you really want to look at, assuming you're not somebody who has a lot of very expensive prescriptions, is just looking at that deductible amount. And so what people do is they look at that amount. Let's say it's for single coverage, right? $1,800 in a year. And they think, wow, I'm going to be paying for example, $500 a month to be on an HMO times 12 months, right? Versus $1,800 is the most that I'll pay as a deductible. So you can really kind of see cost savings there when you look at what you may be paying versus what you could be paying. So again, I just want to touch base on this point. Let's see, did I keep going? Yes, I did. You'll see prescriptions is where you might get close to that out-of-pocket max if you have a lot of prescriptions, because what this means, if you have a specialty medication, you're paying 20% of the cost of it up to a $250 max. And as you might imagine, those specialty medications can be really expensive. So the other reason so I'm using Sutter right now as an example, but I wanted to put this up on the screen because this is really contrasting an HMO with a high deductible health plan in terms of the plan design structure. So you'll see on an HMO, the plan that many of you are probably used to, you don't have a deductible. You pay out of your check each month, you go to the doctor. In this example, you'd pay $20 for a copay. Any kind of physical or well child exam, you don't pay. Labs and x-rays, there might be a slight copay, etc. Conversely, on the high deductible health plan, you'd have to meet a deductible. And then something that's important to note also is for any kind of preventive service, it is actually not included in the deductible. So if I go in just for, an adult physical wellness exam each year, I won't be charged for that. That's not within my deductible. That's basically, you can think of it like a complimentary service, except if that standard wellness exam turns into something else. Let's say that the doctor finds something that they want to take a closer look at it, and then they want to run some tests. Then it becomes, a potential charge. So just know that. But in terms of wellness exams and things of that nature, those are still included, and the carriers can't charge for those, even under the high deductible health plan. Okay, so I just kind of did a comparison. All of these plan design grids are in the benefit guide. We aren't finished with next year's yet. We're still working on all those materials, but that's where you can see these side-by-side comparisons. Another term, let's see, is it here? Yes, I think I mentioned what that was, but coinsurance. That basically means you have to pay that amount. Coinsurance is rare on most of these plans, but you do see it. Okay. Other area where this can get confusing is a health savings account versus a flexible spending account. So many of you may be used to participating in a flexible spending account, and that's where we've held open enrollment in the fall each year, where you are setting aside money on a pre-tax basis to use for out-of-pocket medical, dental, and vision expenses. So common areas where people use this plan are, for example, orthodontia. That's a big ticket item that is expensive, where you can set aside money on a pre-tax basis and have it available on January 1st to use. And then basically you get reimbursed throughout the year for what you're spending. And it's taken 12, for many of you, equal installments. One per month would be taken out of your plan to cover the amount that you're spending. So let's just say you enroll in a flexible spending account. You say, I want to contribute $1,200 in 2024 to this account. What that does is it lowers your taxable income. You have $1,200 available to you on January 1st. Let's say, you're going through orthodontia. You might, pay your $1,200 payment on January 1st. And then each check throughout the year is going to take a $100 deduction if you're 12thly, right, to reach $1,200 by the end of the year. So we're front loading the money and then basically taking it back, but that lowers your taxable income. So you can see with a big ticket item, maybe LASIK, like laser vision surgery is another one. Maybe it's a few $1,000s that can help lower your taxable income. The difference is it's use it or lose it. And so if by the end of the year, plus there's a grace period that goes until March 15th of every year, so you have a little bit extra time to spend it. But if you don't spend that funding, you do lose it. So you have to be mindful of the amount that you choose to defer. Caveat to that with the dependent care plan, which I don't think I even mentioned here. Nope, because it's not particularly relevant, but we can't front load the money for dependent care. That one works a little bit differently. And then again, now with a flexible spending account, if you are enrolled in a high deductible health plan, and say you have an HSA, you can open a limited use FSA, which goes, you can run dental and vision expenses through that. You cannot have, and this is, I might be losing some of you here, and that's okay, we can talk about it at the end, but you can't have a flexible spending account and use it for medical expenses and have an HSA and run expenses, medical expenses through an HSA. The IRS sees that as kind of double dipping, if you will. So if you have an HSA, you can use that for medical expenses. And you have an FSA, you have to have a limited use FSA. So you can only use dental and vision with those. To be honest, a lot of people don't even bother having both because it is confusing. They just stick with one. Health savings account. So again, you have to be enrolled in a high deductible health plan. The funds that you put into that health savings account stay with you for life. You can even bring those with you into retirement, pay for your medical premiums in retirement. You can invest those funds. A lot of people use it as an extra retirement savings account that they can draw on later in life. So it's a pretty powerful tool that you can use in a lot of different ways. These are the 2023 contribution limits. The 2024, I don't think they're up to date yet, or we haven't changed them in our materials, but this is the amount that you can set aside into a health savings account. As I mentioned before, you might be eligible for a monthly district contribution to it, but in 2023, individual coverage, you could put $3,850 into a health savings account, and for family coverage, you could put in $7,750. That's for the year. And you can also contribute an additional $1,000 if you are 55 or over in 2023, or if you're turning 55, in 2023. So again, those will go up a little bit next year. That amount includes both employee contribution and the district. So if you're putting money into it and the district is, that combined amount cannot exceed that, or you'll be taxed on the excess. And then some considerations here. So a couple of things to consider. I'm sure many of you might be thinking, wow, that deductible is high, or it might be scary if I reach that deductible on day one. So something that's important to consider is all of the carriers will work with you to establish a payment plan. So I'll give an example. Some years back, we had an employee who switched over to the high deductible health plan, and it was effective July 1st. And that was right before 4th of July weekend. And her child was in a very serious accident over that weekend, and she had just switched over. So of course, that's your absolute worst scenario, on many levels. And she had mentioned, months later when we touched base about how her child was doing, she had said that actually what really worked out is the carrier was able to divide, whatever that deductible amount, because obviously the deductible would have been met in that situation, and divide it into small payments. So she was able to make payments on the deductible. If you end up hospitalized in that situation, they're not going to not let you leave because you haven't paid your whole deductible. They're absolutely willing to work with you. So that's just good to know. In an absolute worst case scenario, if you don't have the $1,800, $3,600 laying around to pay the deductible, there are absolutely options. So That was kind of my fear when I switched over, and that was something that reassured me. I know many people who are making those types of plans, and the carriers make it pretty easy to do. So you will be enrolling in these plans now every fall. You have your choice of enrolling in medical plans. And so now, effective this year, this is the first year that we had open enrollment in both the spring and the fall. That was a one-time thing to get us to this fall open enrollment. So now forward, every open enrollment for full-time staff will be in the fall. And it will now be medical, dental, vision, voluntary plans, plus flexible spending all in one. So you don't have to remember which open enrollment it is. It will all be together, and it will all operate on a calendar year, which is really nice because all of the annual maximums operate on a calendar year, the deductibles, everything will be standardized. And then another way that you can save and set aside this money for out-of-pocket expenses is we offer voluntary accident, critical illness, and hospital indemnity plans. And what those are voluntary benefits through our insurance carrier, Voya. We rolled these out a couple of years ago. So if you enroll in one of these plans, they are completely separate from your medical plan. You pay a small monthly fee, whether depending on which option you choose, individual, employee plus one, plus plan, etc. And you're covered under whatever that topic is. So I'll use accident as an example. I pay, I think it's $17.11 per month for myself, my husband, and my 2 sons to be covered. And what that means is should one of us become involved in some kind of accident, that plan will pay set amounts, set benefits to me depending on what happens. So a couple years ago, my son was at summer camp and he fell and we thought he broke a bone in his elbow, I think it was. And we had to take him in, had to get him x-rays. He had to go to see a couple different doctors to figure out if it was broken. Anyway, long story short, I filed a claim. I had just enrolled in the Voya accident plan, and Voya paid out set benefits. I think they pay, $100 for the x-ray, $200 for the office visit. They literally just write you a check. Again, not connected to any of your medical anything, completely separate. But because I was covered under that plan and my son had experienced an accident, I was able to recoup some of the out-of-pocket expenses that I had experienced as a result of him getting hurt. The same holds true for critical illness. If someone covered under the plan becomes critically ill, the plan will pay out set benefits to you. Same with the hospital indemnity plan. So I'm trying to remember, LRCEA had a separate plan like this a while back, and it operates really similarly. AFLAC, that's right. I was just thinking of the duck. AFLAC operates very similarly. And so if you were enrolled in that, this would be very similar. So then you're probably wondering how you might choose between the plans. So there are some considerations to make. One, consider your family situation. If you have individual coverage, how often do you go to the doctor? Do you have any different medical conditions, need prescriptions, etc.? Think about what a typical year of medical expenses looks like for you or your family. And then how much are you paying for your coverage? Take the monthly premium and multiply by 12. It's a little bit scary when you actually see how much you're paying annually for the coverage. And again, this is just meant to be another option. We certainly can't advocate for a certain plan. I can't say any one is better than the other, but it's really specific to your family situation and how it will work for you. So there are some resources. Some of these will be updated soon. There's an HSA presentation that we did with our broker Epic a couple years ago. We are in the process for open enrollment. We are trying to get all of the carriers to basically make appointment windows where you could log in and ask questions during open enrollment. Still working on that, but we're hoping to roll that out. There are different HSA videos linked to our website. In fact, I am pretty sure Christina has this presentation. I'll make sure she does so that she can distribute because these are all linked. Okay. And then something else that's really helpful, you're probably also thinking, how do I know how much things are going to cost when I go to the doctor? You know, is an office visit going to be $1,000? Well, generally, no. Each of the carriers produces what is called a sample fee list each year, where you can go and take a look at how much on average is a, doctor's appointment. What about an x-ray? What about a lab, et cetera? And that will help you to determine, what you may be spending. And then the voluntary benefits that I mentioned, we did a recording a couple of years ago. The link is there, and then there's information on each of those 3 plans. Okay. And then how to reach us. So this is our main website here, general number. I put my information. I'm generally the one in our office who deals with health savings accounts. So I am your best person to reach. And thank you. Let's see. Stop sharing my screen. I know you all have questions. Here, I'll come back now so you can see me. Here I am. Are we overwhelmed? No, kind of. Fairly honest answer. Brittney, anything that I did not cover that I should have covered?
I don't think so. I think you covered it all pretty well.
It's just that it's so much, and we don't know, what's coming with like next month and open enrollment. And it's just, I started in full-time in 2007, and then 2008 was when, the crisis of California, and the money. And so I immediately in January, I got at the year point, I'd been here for a year, and it's like, oh, I get a raise. And that was November when I started. And then January, but we're hit with a bunch of new stuff that came out. So it's kind of been like that all along. And it's always been a healthcare, those payments and that money. And knock on wood, I mean, yeah, I go to doctor's appointments here and there, but I haven't had anything. And so there's all this money that has been going to something, and I can't, but now I'm,
Right.
over 55, and I'm at that age where I can't just not get it, because now I'm probably going to start needing it all the time, so it's really a scary, I don't know what's best for me. And, yeah, so there's a lot to think about and try to figure out, how do we figure out what's going to end up being the best? That's the thing with insurance altogether. There's no crystal ball to tell you anything. So
right. And I think you're right. Costs in general have been going up, whether it's, whether it was the pandemic, just in general, inflation, et cetera. The costs, I mean, I usually tell people just expect every year they're going to go up. And if they don't, it's a welcome surprise, because that's just where, look in the news, it's just everywhere. Healthcare is getting more expensive. I do think that health savings accounts and high deductible health plans, are a definite trend that you see. I have a friend who works at VSP, and she was telling me this is their only option. They don't have HMOs anymore. They got too expensive. They literally are offered high deductible health plans and health savings accounts. So will that ever happen here? I'm not saying that, but just saying in general, this is the world kind of where things seem to be going. And although absolutely any transition to a different plan could be scary, keep in mind also that you're not locked into this plan for more than a year, right? You try it out. That's what I did. I tried it out, saw how it went, and I've stayed. It's been 2 years now. And also, there will be good years and bad years, right? I mean, there's going to be some years where maybe you don't spend much and you end up really ahead on what you would have spent. And then maybe there's years, unfortunately, something, larger occurs. And so I think it's all a balance, but it's also how willing you are. And I think this shouldn't be, this should probably, I should have highlighted this better, but it's also how willing you are to really look at the plan and kind of manage it. So with an HMO or a DHMO, you're going to the doctor, you're getting services, you go home, all is well with the world, right? Well, as you can probably see with a high deductible health plan, you need to be mindful of what you're spending. You just have to be knowledgeable. You have to pay the bills as they come. You have to see what's in your health savings account. And so there's just a little bit more administrative work. And if you're somebody who really, really doesn't excel at that, doesn't like doing it, then, you know, maybe think a little bit more about enrolling in the plan. It just requires that extra step. I'm somebody who does that and who likes to do that, and it's worked for me, but I can tell you all, and I probably shouldn't say this too loudly if my husband's in the next room, but if it were him enrolling this plan, yeah, I would not have him enroll, because he would not be able to keep track of the bills and what was paid. And also, when you're choosing whether or not to even be seen, I think it changes your perspective. So I think with my sons, well, they're a little bit older now, but when they were young, if I were on this plan, I probably would have thought twice all the time about taking them in instead of just hurrying and taking them in for whatever, right? And now I go, okay, should I just call the advice nurse? Should I do a video appointment? Is it really worth me bringing them in? You know, and I just do the cost benefit of what it might entail. So hopefully that makes sense. We will, as I mentioned, we're hoping to get all of the carriers to establish kind of like, I don't think it will be an appointment window per se, but windows of time where employees can log in and engage with, you know, a representative from Kaiser, WHA, and Sutter to ask those more individualized questions about how the plans work. I think that would be a really great kind of in between. We haven't been able to get everyone out to the campuses again yet. It's something that we're looking at, trying to figure out in this new post-COVID world, what makes sense? What do employees want, right? And we also need the reassurance from all the carriers to get them to go out to the sites. We have to guarantee them that people will appear. And that's hard to do, right? Again, in this new post-pandemic life. So we're hoping to do that. There will be a webinar that's recorded also. I'm starting to draft the materials now. You'll get a save the date, I'm hoping, in the next couple of days. And so you'll start to see things, and then it will start to make more sense. Questions,
so other
comments?
question that I have, one other
Sure,
question.
sure.
If I already have, you know, I already have Kaiser, and so I already have my doctor and everything, switching
Mhm.
plans doesn't mean you have to switch all of that stuff if you stay within Kaiser or
Great
Sutter or
question.
whatever.
Great question. Yes. And a little known fact, your Kaiser number actually stays with you for life. So if you left Kaiser and came back, they give you the same number, which is kind of nice. But no, you would keep, everything really stays the same at the appearance. It's what's happening in the background. You know, I know when I first switched, you could tell, I go to, or take the kids to a fairly new Kaiser in our area. And even now, this one particular employee at the counter every time looks at what the copay shows up as when he checks us in and goes, oh, I think something's wrong. And I tell him, no, you know, we're on the high deductible health plan, just bill us. You always ask, generally I've been advised to just have them bill you, because the services that you're expected to have might change, right? So if they're just guessing, say, I don't know, you go in for my son's sick or something and they code what they think they're going to charge you. What gets a little confusing is, let's say then you go in and they want to do something else, or it's actually something else. And then on the backside, they need to re-invoice. It just gets too messy. So I generally just say, can you just bill me so that when I get the bill, I can take a look and make sure it's consistent with the services that he received. Right? So hopefully that makes it make more sense too. I'm certainly welcome and open to any questions. And if anyone has a question they don't necessarily want to ask out loud, if you either, I don't know, if you either stay on, send me an email, put it in the chat, whatever you want to do is fine with me. No?
Or we could stop the recording if you know,
I'll
maybe
do
they
that.
just don't
Yep.
want it on the recording.
Absolutely. Yep. Just making sure. Okay, well, I will officially close, but I'll hang on. Thank you all so much for joining. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know this is a lot. You'll get there, I promise. And feel free to reach out to us in benefits@losrios.edu. That's the quickest way to get any one of us. Thanks again, and I hope you have a great day.
Thanks, Nicole. Have a good day.
You're welcome. You too.